Good morning, everyone. This is Chris with Vertical Without Bedsores. To, to those of you who are new to this channel, I think I just like to introduce myself. I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer with less than 6 months to live, so I'm trying to keep from going crazy. And one of the things I wanted to do was start to be a YouTube creator. Thinking about what's good in life. In my life, there's a lot of things good in life, but in my life, I recently got this car. It's a 2007 Saturn, and if I'm gonna give you a little tour of it, my neighbor's mother was very generous and sold it to me for $900. It has I don't know, something like 180,000 miles on it. But it's a very interesting vehicle. It was made by General Motors. Saturn was sort of the concierge answer to Chevrolet. It was made by General Motors, and it was going to be a whole new concept in cars manufacturing and service. We up here in Calumet, and please forgive my raspy voice. It's been raining here for 3 days, and it's September 3rd, and 43 degrees. But to look at this car lived up here in Calumet, we have 5 months of winter. Winter starts on Halloween, the snow, and it ends around April 15th. And very, very rough on cars. And if you notice, there's no rust on this car. Now, how did this car survive years of long winters with salt and not become a rust bucket? It's plastic. I think the hood is metal, but the rest of the car is plastic. So you can see there's no rot, and it's in pretty good shape. But the amazing thing about this car is that it has a Honda 6-cylinder in it, which is an engine that if you don't overheat and you change the oil, you could probably get 400,000 miles out of it. So I was very pleased to get this car for $900. I don't know if any of them have gone out and looking for used cars, but they have pickup trucks out there, 20-year-old pickup trucks that they're asking $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for that are rust buckets. Okay, so we talk about Calumet and the influence of the copper mines. This was James Mac Naughton. He was a tough guy, very efficient manager, and he did quite well for himself. He's probably making, in today's dollars, around $2.5 million salary a year. This was James Mac Naughton's, not his house, but his riding stable. And it sat here for years in a semi-deteriorative state. And the guy who owned it died, who had bought it from Mac Naughton. And another guy came along and started rehabbing the place. And I think the building over here, this was the stable. You can see up there at the top that block and tackle that they would bring hay and whatever else and store it up there for the horses. And guy's done a pretty nice job on rehabbing the place. You can see he's got, I think he made that into a room and put a fence up for himself here. And this building with these big white doors, I mean, look at the size of these doors. It'd take two guys to open it at least. This was, I believe, the carriage house. But you know, you got people here that are really sort of rugged individualists, very talented guys. I mean, look at what a nice job they did on the steps and the roof, and you know, to think this was just a guy's stable, that's pretty impressive. Now, I'll probably end up these rugged individualists. They're very territorial and they get very angry sometimes when people walk around on their property uninvited, which I'm doing right now. And so if they throw you off the property, it's best to just apologize without an argument, because you might end up getting a good ass whooping. So I'm a little nervous about getting yelled at, but I've been yelled at so much in my whole life that it's not as though it hasn't been an experience I've had before. You know, my motto was always better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I don't want to get too close. I don't want to hold the camera up to the interior windows of his house. But this is a pretty impressive house. And the guy spent a lot of money on it and a lot of sweat equity. But James Mac Naughton, the CEO of Calumet and Hecla, this was his backyard. And I stopped and talked to a guy. I didn't know exactly where the place was. But his house was sitting right around here. And this guy here built the house where I think James Mac Naughton's old house was at. You know, James Mac Naughton was an Anglican kind of guy, a Methodist. And somebody told me when Mac Naughton, I think, died in 47, and I think his wife lived for quite a few years after he died. And when she died, he had two daughters. Somebody said that with these Anglican or Methodists, this sort of kind of Scottish Rite people, I don't know anything about it, but it's not unusual for them to tear down the house in which they don't sell it, they don't convey it. It's sort of kind of when they go, so does the house. So James Mac Naughton's house was torn down, I think somebody said in the 60s. And then I think the wife, I'll have to check this out, but the wife, if anybody knows about it, it'd be nice to hear. I think that Mac Naughton died in the late 40s. The wife died in the 50s. And then I think the house was torn down in the 60s. So, but it's odd that they would tear down his house and leave this beautiful barn. They didn't tear that down. Now, they say, hey, and I just want to show you, this guy burns wood around here. And people take wood seriously. Here's his wood pile. And then he's got his splitter. When they guys around here, these rugged individualists, these frontiersmen, when they do stuff, they do it quite seriously. Now look at, and this looks like it's all hardwood. And they bring in what they call a pup truck. And it's usually a big semi with 2 trailers on it. And they have a big boom on it. And they'll leave you a load of lumber. I mean, what to think? I mean, what a magnificent building here. Mac Naughton's daughters he built them a playhouse. And it had heat in it and a fireplace and running water. And let's see what else here. It was brick. It was quite a beautiful little house. And as I said, the guy's making like $2.5 million a year. So, I would love to hear somebody contribute with more details about. He was a pretty conservative guy, Mac Naughton, but he liked to spend money on his family, and that's fine. I think he drove nice cars, and he worked very hard. He was a very hardworking guy. So it's odd how here you can never get away from copper. They call this copper country, and they were quite serious. It is. It was made by copper, and you'll never get away from the influence of the copper mines. And Calumet and Hecla and Agassiz, 2 of the owners. And I got to take this belt out. I'm going to come around the corner here, which is a pretty dangerous corner. And easy place to have a head on. But this corner lot, I stopped and talked to a guy a couple of years ago. And see how this comes here. You can get killed quite easily here. This whole lot belonged to Mac Naughton, I believe. Here's the guy who I was. If you go, he built a new addition since I talked to him last time. But if you go behind that addition, that's where the Mac Naughton girls had their wonderful formal sort of kind of garden and their wonderful playhouse. And this was the corner, the area where James Mac Naughton lived. Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening, and seeing you real soon. Bye-bye.